Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Irene, and I'm a PhD candidate in the program of Film and Screen Studies. My research interests, lie in the theory of size specificity in relation to moving image installations in the museum space. And tonight I will talk about Tacita Dean and her film Portrait. So let's begin. Last year, British artist and filmmaker Tacita Dean launched a trio of solo shows in collaboration with the Royal Academy of Arts, the National Gallery, and the National Portrait Gallery. The three exhibitions, you can see the posters here, were shaped by Dean's response to the individual character of each institution, entitled accordingly, Landscape, Still Life, and Portrait. The catalogue essay written by the three directors of participating galleries states that their unprecedented joint project intends to explore, quote, the classical genre typically associated with painting through the prism of Dean's wide-ranging mediums, unquote. Among the three shows, my presentation focuses on Portrait, hosted by the National Portrait Gallery, from the 15th of March to the 28th of May 2018. According to Nicholas Cullinan, director of the National Portrait Gallery, Dean's Portrait is the first exhibition devoted to the medium of film in the gallery's history. Although the meaning and aim of the first film exhibition at his institution is not delineated, it can be inferred from the comment of another director, Gabriele Finaldi, director of the National Gallery, where Dean staged Still Life. He writes that, quote, the collaboration reflects the increasingly important role of contemporary art in the National Gallery's programming as it reaches out to wider and more varied audiences, unquote. Portrait took up two separate spaces as the National Portrait Gallery, its top and ground floors. So I wanted to show you a brief video of this installation, but yeah, let's check up and let's do it later at the end of this, presentation. Let's just imagine that we are visiting this exhibition. Once on entering the venue, visitors are guided straight to the fourth floor of the museum and then into room 16, where the show begins. The first thing they find in this room is a minuscule screen. Actually, let me show you. This is a screen. So it's the size of, like this size. The screen, a minuscule screen installed on the wall facing the entrance to this tiny and dimly lit space. The screen is surrounded by the gallery's permanent collection of late 16th and early 17th century portrait miniatures. This is the miniature. The wall panels deliver information about the tradition of miniature making in the English Renaissance and its foremost practitioners. The collection on display highlights the portraits of famous writers, including William Shakespeare and John Donne, who, according to the wall text, quote, wove miniatures into contemporary culture through references in their plays and poems, unquote. In dialogue with the gallery's miniature collection, Dean puts on display her two newly made works for this space entitled His Picture in Little, this is the work, and Providence. The two films represent her interpretation of the art of the miniature. That is to say, in the course of the production, she reduced 35mm anamorphic films into spherical 60mm format. His Picture in Little takes its title from the bard's Hamlet and features three British actors who once played the main protagonist in the tragedy. Each actor was filmed individually in a different place and time, and then the footage was combined into one film strip. In the whole length of the film of 15.5 minutes, the camera records the actor's physical reaction to its presence, alone in an unidentifiable space, each actor sits in front of the camera, striking a pose. Employing virtually static headshots of them, Dean creates portraits that reference the long-established rules clearly defined by the tradition of portrait miniature dating back to the 16th century. To quote Dean, the head of the sitter may be no more than 2 inches high, within a surface area of a maximum of 25 square inches, including the frame. With the head in proportion to the space that surrounds it, it is clear there can be no permitted crowding of the picture edge. However, she also seeks to break such fixed rules by including shots showing the actors' entire bodies and uniting 2 or 3 sitters in one frame. And like this. And these are the real actors, who appeared in her work. And the woman in the middle, the small woman in the middle, she's Tacita Dean. And this is the portrait of William Shakespeare. In creating her tiny portrait, Dean focuses on film's unique capability, as opposed to painting, which, after all, is the most prominent medium used for portraiture. For her, the medium of film makes it possible to unite, quote, disparate places, people, and events together in one frame, unquote, and to reveal the awkward moments between reality and performance when the actor are not playing any role, nor assuming a specific pose, yet still performing in front of the camera. She asks, all 3 are fine and esteemed actors who are used to being directed. So how does one depict them, surely at their most uncomfortable when they are being watched, while playing no role at all, when they must be content with being observed at themselves? She goes on to describe her photochemical film, The Ultimate Miniature, quote, where the sitter's true self coexists with his performing self. Instead of aesthetic regulations imposed by the pictorial conventions of portraiture, moreover, her film follows the aesthetics of chance. So this is the quote. There is a strange thing happens. No gesture or expression can be directed within this method of masking, nor can it be choreographed in time. Everything is left to chance. The medium of film requires blind faith. The Latin word camera originated from Greek kamara, spelled with a K, actually not C, meaning a vault or covered room. With her intervention, Dean ultimately attempts to turn room 16 into a camera obscura, meaning a dark chamber. The term camera obscura, also referred to as pinhole image, means pinhole image, and it also means devices that make use of the natural optical phenomenon that occurs when an image of a scene at the other side of a screen is projected through a small hole in the screen as a reversed and inverted image on a surface opposite to the opening. These devices were developed into photographic camera in the 19th century, as you can see it here. This is the principle of camera obscura. Public intimacy is the term film scholar Juliana Bruno uses to describe the cinema spectatorship in the museum. For Bruno, the screen in the gallery space reproduces the, quote, performative space the movie theater has represented, unquote. With the filming interface, the individual spectator will have a haptic experience following a geopsychic itinerary of the collective memories installed on the screen by the interplay of history. A spectator therefore becomes a voyager come voyeur. This haptic path built by a film screen is to be projected onto one's mind and transports one to explore the depth of one's unconscious. In this sense, Bruno argues that the moving image installations can change the architecture, which is a combined word, with architecture and texture, of the museum, and challenges the ways of seeing controlled by the institution's history. Compared to Bruno's ideas, Dean's film exhibition at the National Portrait Gallery is more complicated. It works on two different levels. On one hand, she employs the medium of film in line with the practice of portraiture making, respecting its traditions. On the other hand, her film portraiture shatters the rules of fine art and re-envisages the gallery space as a camera obscura, which follows the chance principle, shining a light on the smallest and random gestures of the sitters. Descending to the ground floor, the viewer is led to explore several rooms, each of which Dean dedicates to a contemporary artist, with the exception of Mars Cunningham performing Stillness. This is the work on the slide, which consists of 6 screens. There is a single screen in each space, playing a moving portrait of each artist on a loop. On these screens, which appear gigantic, compared to his film in Little, the miniature work, on the top floor, one sees a continuation of Dean's fascination with the small gestures made by each subject. In her bigger portraits, like this, the distinguished contemporary artists are engaged in the most mundane and ordinary tasks. For example, Cy Twombly goes out with his friends to dine at a local restaurant and sits in his studio reading a book by Yeats. And Michael Hamburger, he's a poet, talks about many species of apples he grows. And Klaus Oldenburg, he's an artist, dusts and rearranges his toy collection. In an essay for the exhibition catalog, independent curator and art critic Huang Gaitan insists that Tacita Dean's portraits are concerned with the fact that their subjects' bodies have become inseparable from their work. According to him, while focusing on day-to-day private life of the artist, her films ultimately portray their bodies as cultural archives containing collective memories. He writes, quote, Dean's portraits as a whole, rather than approaching the artist individually, are more interested in capturing the moment in which an individual life is indistinguishable from the life's work. Unquote. In his analysis, Gaitan fails to consider the influence of the space where the works are installed, which prompts him to illuminate a particular aspect of Dean's film portraits while ignoring the others. In an earlier project at Tate Modern's Turbine Hall, this is the exhibition at Tate Modern, which was boldly titled Film in capital letters. Dean and curator Cullinan made it clear that her film installations in museums have 2 key purposes. It tried to, quote, get film appreciated as film, to understand and preserve it as the independent and irreplaceable medium, and to show it as a legitimate medium of art, unquote. In the bigger cultural archive of the Portrait Gallery, Dean's portrait of individual artists, which Gaitan called a fugitive archive, emphasizes and claims 2 aspects of film as an art form. First, Dean shows that film is a medium of art which is compatible with the existing genres and the traditions of fine arts. Second, she emphasizes that film is a unique medium in that it can get closer to the reality and present the moment in which artists undo themselves and behave like normal human beings. In the crux of this cross-shaped exhibition hall on the ground floor of the National Portrait Gallery, a meditative film of David Hockney is running. Filmed in his studio, he chain smokes 5 cigarettes, one by one, of course, and at 5 cigarettes. At the end of the film, he laughs in a way that can be described as uncivilized. The sound of his laughing fills the entire space of the ground floor. At this very moment, the journey that began with the bard's tragedy, Hamlet, turns into a black comedy. For Freud, jokes and laughter happen when the conscious allows the expression of thoughts that society usually suppresses or forbids. The comic, therefore, means a moment of temporary liberation from the superego and cultural norms. When Hackney stops laughing, the film ends. Moments later, it starts again from the beginning, showing him lighting up his first cigarette once again. The order is reinstated while the viewer continues their journey at their own pace inside the space of the museum. And let's watch a short video. It's less than a minute, actually. This is the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, please. Thank you.